I want to first welcome you to the Penthouse Suite interviews. Normally, we'd be doing these interviews in the Penthouse Suites of the Francis Marion Hotel, but given what we're up against in terms of COVID, the entire conference has gone online, and so these interviews have also gone online, and we're doing this through Zoom. And I want to thank you, not only welcome you, but thank you for being willing to be interviewed, especially under such more difficult conditions than we're used to. So thank you very much for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for affording me this opportunity, and full applause to the Charleston Conference and the related teams for keeping this really important event going. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're glad that we're able to do that. So first, I want to start off, though, by congratulating both you and Emerald Publishing for being named both the Independent Publisher and the Academic and Professional Publisher of the Year at the 2020 Independent Publishers Guild Awards. And I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about how those awards came about, and what does it take for a publisher to get such prestigious recognition?
Oh, thank you. That's a great way to start. It's a big honor for us and quite humbling to be recognized externally. And it really validates for us what Emerald Publishing is doing, the efforts of our global teams, and most certainly our standout authors and editors. The process is quite straightforward. You got to put your name in the hat. And we were thrilled. And I think perhaps the most validating piece for us was the commentary around the recognition. I think the judges really caught on to what we're trying to do at Emerald Publishing, which is to be incredibly creative, very, very innovative, and to really express with clarity what our vision is. We could be sort of resting on our successes, and we've had plenty since I've joined Emerald Publishing. So given the way the world is right now, a feel-good moment, we'll take it. I think we all just took it as a moment to sort of refill our tanks, if you will. So thank you, it was fabulous. And I will say, since I'm on some horn tooting, that we had a really welcome recognition earlier in the year when we were awarded the Open Athens Award. And that was based around a platform that we launched. And as many people know, having been through it, launching a platform from systems architecture development to beta to user testing is no small endeavor. And it felt very validating for us as a company, most certainly for the platform development. We got the award 6 months after launch. So
well,
that was exciting, equally.
Well, congratulations for all of that. Obviously, the folks at Emerald are doing something right to get that kind of recognition. So again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, you also, tomorrow, you're going to be presenting at the Charleston Conference. I think at 1:30, I think you all are scheduled to present. And the title of the presentation is, If Not Now, When? Change Through the Power of Diverse Voices. And at that presentation, you in particular will be presenting the findings from the 2020 Emerald Publishing Global Inclusivity Report. But before we get into those findings, I'd like you to tell us who was surveyed and what was the reason behind conducting the survey, and what exactly is the inclusivity gap that you all refer to?
Okay, sure, I'm happy to. Thank you for those questions. I think it's safe to say, while academia doesn't move at a super fast pace, but the research landscape is certainly changing. And we believe a key factor in this change, a propellant, if you will, is inclusivity awareness. So we felt very strongly that it was time to move beyond sort of solidarity, signposting, if you will, gather some data and use that as really our accelerator forward, whether it's partnerships, what we can do to tackle this issue and its global impact. And we had to start with really issuing this report, better understand the views of the research community and what they thought the barriers were, having a more inclusive promoting inclusivity within academia and certainly across wider society. It felt like the absolute right thing for us to do. Emerald has really deep roots in equity, diversity, and inclusion, most certainly internally throughout the business, and it's a deep ethos that runs from top to bottom across Emerald Publishing. And I would like to think that EDI is almost becoming synonymous with our brand. We take it quite seriously. And, you know, we know to make an impact in this area as a publisher, you have to commit to diverse voices as being really the critical thing that needs to change within scholarly discourse. And it's really beyond not just the subject areas and the research that is funded and published and disseminated, but supporting a wider array of diverse voices is really important across gender, race, and, you know, other diversity areas. So in March, we commissioned this global survey to find out exactly what the inclusivity gap looks like and is. And the report is really comprised of two surveys. In total, so we started with the academic sector and we sent out our survey to about 130,000 people across just over 200 companies. And this was sent to the researchers within our authoring editorship pool, if you will. And we had about 1,100 people respond from 100 countries, and they completed the survey. And again, this was in March. And they gave their perspectives on inclusivity in society, in the workplace, in order to understand perceived barriers, potential solutions. The second part of the report was reaching out to the public. And we did so to about 1,000 people across the United Kingdom and the US. We wanted to really understand their perspectives on themes of inclusivity and use that feedback almost as a comparative tool from what we found within the academic setting. I won't go into it too much because there's a lot of data and meat in there, but you know, in the report, which is freely available, we really present the main findings of the survey, including people's perceptions of inclusivity, the benefits of and barriers to an inclusive society. Topics included attitudes towards research impact evaluation, cultural challenges within academia, and the role certainly that publishers can play in furthering systemic change within the research ecosystem. Now, when I was thinking about this discussion, I do think it's worth noting that these surveys were completed in March. So really prior to what became the real crystallization of what was apparently a very serious global pandemic. And then here in the United States, the survey was completed before the murder of George Floyd, which really became kind of a flashpoint in our country, and I would say in the globe, as we watched people protest in solidarity. You know, and Mr. Floyd's death really, there was nowhere to go with it because of the pandemic, other to really reckon with hundreds of years of civilian brutality and death at the hands of the police. So I think it's logical to conclude that some of the findings and responses, had this survey come out at a different time later, might be quite different.
What would you say were the key findings, though, if you had to narrow and focus down on the key findings of the report? And did it help reveal barriers that we have that stand in the way of achieving inclusivity? And do they, at the same time, do these findings point to strategies that can be used to enhance inclusivity and lessen discrimination?
Those are great questions. Thank you. Well, starting with the academic sector, the biggest benefit that academics saw was kind of a top line promoting different ways of thinking. Nearly 90% ticked that box, if you will. But interesting, worryingly, for me, 13% answered the same question, saying that they could see no benefit at all And there was a very small minority of supporting comments that suggested people felt inclusivity could in fact lead to mediocrity. So, those are the findings when you do a survey of this size. I think it's worth highlighting that 90% of the academics we surveyed ranked inclusivity as super important to them, but they didn't feel that it was quite as important at their institution and in academia in general. About half of those respondents felt that it was quite important to funders. So we can infer from these kind of top line responses that within the academic sector, a lot of people greatly value inclusivity, but feel that the environment that they work in is not reflecting this value. So that was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Overall, the data revealed in many respects what we knew it would at like a super top level. There are perceptions to the clear benefit to inclusivity, but academia seems to lag behind overall.
That's interesting. I'm surprised by that, to be perfectly honest.
Mm-hmm.
Did the findings point to any strategies that could be utilized to improve the situation? Particularly, it seems like a lot of academics don't feel that in their institutions that inclusivity is a major concern. And I'm wondering if the survey in any way highlighted possible strategies that might help in changing that.
Absolutely, we did ask that, and we positioned that against the challenges that the perceptions around an inclusivity gap reveal. Now at Emerald, we have it's been many years in the making, but for us, inclusivity, we use as our signpost a particular sustainable development goal from the United Nations. So that's sort of not our definition, but that's where we align our initiatives around in this area. About 70% felt that one of the biggest things that could happen would be enhancing the knowledge exchange between research, academia, and practice. So that's sort of transference to an applied approach to the real people in the world, people like me, who can't always read very sophisticated research outputs, but nonetheless, the topic is important. It moves beyond driving policy and those sorts of things. Other commitment areas that people felt would really help close this gap and sort of be a catalyst for action included the need for more interdisciplinary research, which has been on the rise for many years, certainly across both the sciences and humanities. Interestingly, just a very clear awareness and articulation that academic culture itself is not very diverse or inclusive. And then I think we're seeing this with some big schools, certainly here in the US and at other global institutions, but that really clear cross collaboration across global universities would be an impactful change driver and a lever for this.
Getting more specific about the actions publishers could take, did the findings give you any hint as to what strategies the publishers themselves could take in closing the inclusivity gap? And did the findings shed any light as to what libraries could do in that regard?
I think we pointedly focused very big pieces of the surveys on those two areas. Really, the intention was to include our entire cohort within the scholarly publishing ecosystem, if you will. In terms of what publishers can do to close this gap, the prevailing answer was remove paywalls, limiting the number of people who can access research. And we weren't surprised by that by any means. Echoed next probably by make related research more discoverable beyond academia. So that's a thing that we kept hearing sort of echoed within the survey findings, that whatever your opinions are on how researchers rely on researchers for tenure and promotion and citations and the ways that impact is measured, it has to leave the ivory walls. it's such an important piece and would be such a contributor to winnowing an inclusivity gap. And really, I think there's going to be kind of an organic acceleration towards open access, which is certainly, I think, going to ramp up here in the United States. Canada as well. Europe is already quite a few sort of massive library and institutional consortia who are already working pretty deeply in this space. But that was one of the key things. And then in terms of the perspective of the library and librarianship, our partners that I've been speaking with this fall, particularly at research-intensive schools, are doing everything from revisiting the diversity within their holdings, whether it's subject areas, if they can find this information, really looking at diversity metrics on authorship around race, gender, and other aspects. I mean, this is deep critical work that people are taking seriously to model how they support patrons and faculty and to make sure what they have looks like the real world. I mean, I can only posit that libraries will continue to, in fact, coalesce more strongly around institutional initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think it was last week, but I was a really good example of this would be Temple University announcing, I think it's $1 million investment towards anti-racism education and programming. The Temple already has a very sort of vaunted and well-established African-American studies department, but they're putting some funding into expanding their Department of Anthropology. They're also creating a brand new center for anti-racism research. Then going back again to taking all of this work and bringing it out of the academy, they're developing what looks to me like an amazing bridge program for North Philadelphia students. So that to me, like I applaud. Like I can't, when I read that, I thought, there you go. And I think it would make sense that with this initiative, Temple Libraries would review their current research publication holdings and as a means of amplifying the whole school's commitment to anti-racism. And there are a lot of challenges right now in higher education, whether it is funding, whether it is budget allocation. So this sort of investment, proceeding apace, I'm sure it was thought of this year, is amazing. It's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think taking this research and taking all this commitment and bringing it to the community and in a broader societal sense is a challenge, but it's something that has to be done. And I'm glad to hear that that's a direction that it seems things are going.
We are passionate about this. I mean, personally, I'm ready to start a movement. I am. I just need people to jump off the cliff with me. And it means that you kind of have to have some, trumpeters, some creative destruction happening of these very entrenched frameworks whereby research excellence is measured. You can sign up to be a signatory of DORA, which is trying to do similar things, which is really find impactful ways of letting a funding body know, here's what your support has done, not just within this field or this school. Here's how it's making a real impact in the real world. Yeah, I'm super passionate about that. Emerald is as well, and it just will take a bit of a revolution, I think.
Well, best of luck in fomenting that revolution. Erika, before we let you go, is there anything that we've missed? Is there anything that you'd like to add?
I think your questions have been perfect for the purposes of this interview. I would just add that this is, a critical step to take. And we're not alone on this. Many other people in this ecosystem have been taking pains to gather data and to do real self-reflection on what they can do. And that's scalable. If everybody does, then the needle will start to move visibly. So there's the workplace equity report. There's lots of partnerships that are happening, and people are tackling this and working together, which I think is inspirational. We do best together.
It's going to take a group effort, no doubt, no doubt. So, well, thank you very much, and you really have just whet my appetite for tomorrow's program. It should be very interesting, and I encourage everyone to take a look and learn more about the issues that you're raising with the survey and with the presentation. So, Erika, thank you so much for taking time out of what we know is a very busy schedule to talk to us. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, and thank you so much for again wanting to speak with me. So thanks, Tom.
Okay, take good care now.
Thank
Bye.
you. You too.